Joe?
Yeah?
Did the Nazis invent skateboarding?
No, the Nazis invented the Volkswagen Beetle, Jägermeister, and the speeches of Donald Trump. But they didn't invent skateboarding.
Really? Seems like something they would have invented.
How do you say that, George? Nazis were far-right fanatics who believed in genocide, political suppression, and one leader having absolute power. How do you connect that to skateboarding?
All the white people.
By that logic, the oils for Wes Anderson movies were invented by Nazis.
Sorry, I should have said all the white people in this film. The only skateboarders are white and male. Not even the protagonist's Vietnamese adopted brother rides a skateboard.
And you thought that was an homage to Nazis?
That and the fact that this thing is set in California, and the high school only has 2 Asian students who date each other.
I think one of Christian Slater's buddies is played by former skateboarder Tommy Guerrero, and he's part Filipino.
Well, for the sake of my argument, I'm pretending Filipino is just white people with tans.
Do you share these ideas with other people?
Nope, just you.
Good thing the show is not recorded then. Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast that looks at old movies and asks, does it still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romacka. And today we're discussing Gleaming the Cube from 1989 and some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even the ones who ride skateboards and even the ones that are using a Vietnamese anti-communist relief fund as a cover for weapons smuggling. Them too. And leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod. Now, Joe, take us back to 1989.
1989. Let's jump into our Wayback Machine and check out skateboard-related items in the news that year in the state of California. In Salinas, there was a debate over banning skateboards downtown. Evidently, this is a thing in Cali. For example, just this year, 2023, Ventura, California banned skateboards, bicycles, e-bikes, and scooters in a 5-block area of downtown Ventura. Other places I saw that discussed or outright banned skateboards in 1989 were San Jose, Long Beach, and Thousand Oaks, just to name a few. Now, to be fair, I presume every city or town has some bans on skateboarding, otherwise folks would be doing it all over the place. Back to Salinas. Today, they have parks specifically for people to skateboard, which seems like the best move for everyone.
Gotta keep them segregated.
Okay. Were you ever much of a skateboarder, George?
I was, when I was a kid, but I wasn't very good at it.
Kid as in 12, 15? How
Younger, like 8 to 12.
8 to 12, and you just got into it for a while and then just stopped?
Yeah, because I wasn't any good at it.
Did you have any skateboarding friends you do tricks with?
I didn't have friends, Joe. I had my brother and my cousin.
According to this movie, people don't skateboard with their brothers, so I can't ask if you ever skateboarded with them. All right. In any case, if banning skateboards can happen, so can allowing them. In Palo Alto, that same year, the city council legalized using skateboards for transportation on some roads. This comes to us from the Peninsula Times-Tribune. Headline, George.
Skateboard Technology reaches Palo Alto. So, the wheel?
Yes, the wheel has come to California. I've got to read this quote. We are confronted with a new technology and we must deal with it rather than close our eyes and prohibit it, said Councilman Leland Levy. If I were to design future transportation, I would consider something similar to the skateboard, he said. It's small, easy to deal with, and fast. End quote. This was 1989. Skateboards have been popular in California since at least the 1950s. What new technology would this man talking about? If skateboards were new to him, indoor toilets and talking movies must have blown his mind.
Must have.
What kind of sense is that? Oh, this new technology, this whole skateboarding thing.
Maybe neoprene wheels is what he's talking about. Or, raceless bearings or something.
I don't know. It's very odd. But I liked it, so I quoted it. Now, I was going to leave the history section there, but George asked what was going on with the Vietnamese in California at this time. And so I checked, and there were stories about some immigrants trying to work as fishermen and having a hard time with the regulations. But nothing super interesting seemed to make the news. However, I did find the Los Angeles Times did a poll on this community in Orange County where Gleaming the Cube is set. I will share some of the findings. Headline, George.
Poll. Orange County, Vietnamese city, gangs, crime as their worst problems.
And it's true, people did complain about this, but in that same story it says this, quoting, despite the expressed concerns about gangs and crime, the desire for better police protection was far down the list of what those who were interviewed thought were government programs most needed for the Vietnamese people living in Orange County. Only 17% listed police protection as the greatest need. Employment and business development programs were mentioned by 25% of those asked about the biggest needs of the Vietnamese community. But the largest single segment, 33%, said English language classes were the greatest need. End quote. Also, from the poll, 62% found some or a lot of discrimination directed at them. Almost half said children in their families were not expected to marry someone Vietnamese, which is interesting because this movie would have you assume otherwise. Today, America has diplomatic relations with Vietnam, but in 1989, the idea of our two countries being allies was controversial. I will quote. Those surveyed were almost evenly divided on whether renewing U.S. diplomatic ties with Vietnam would have a good effect on Vietnamese residents in this country. They also were nearly evenly split on whether they would visit Vietnam if relations between the two nations were to be normalized. End quote. Which sounds to me like a lot of these people consider the States to be their new home. But this is not the impression you get from this movie, at least in my opinion.
I think this movie could be seen more like there's a group of hardliner Vietnamists that are in the United States, but generally speaking, like the daughter doesn't have that same identity.
She does, but we'll get into it.
It seems like this almost standard first and second generation immigration thing, where the first generation immigrants retain a lot of identity with the home country and their children start to diverge from that.
Sure. But the thing, we'll get into it when we get to the story, but there were some things that people say to each other and the reactions that they have. I did not feel like they considered them actual Americans, but we can debate that. Okay, George, tell us about Gleaming the Cube.
All right. This was directed by Graham Clifford and written by Michael Tolkien. Not any relation to J.R.R. Tolkien.
That we know of.
Different spelling. This guy is not as good a writer as J.R.R. Tolkien. For the show, we saw his work in Deep Cover.
And I've seen his work in The Player.
And I've seen it in Deep Impact.
So he had two movies with the word deep in it for some reason.
Yep.
He likes deep. And who doesn't?
Chicago-style pizza can die in a fire.
You don't like deep dish pizza?
Nope. As Kit calls it, mozzarella cheese slurry.
You got such fancy taste.
Blurbs. IMDb. Really?
So highfalutin.
Preferring New York-style pizza is a fancy taste? Blurbs. IMDb says, a young avid skateboarder uncovers a government conspiracy while investigating his adoptive brother's mysterious death. No. Just no.
But it's not really a government conspiracy.
Yeah. Okay, and Amazon. All right, I'm pretty sure, I don't know who wrote this blurb, but it's going to be a fun ride. The interest of Brian in his skateboard, his adoptive brother, a Vietnamese boy, is studious and staid. One day, he comes into contact with a fellow countryman who deals with assistance to the Vietnamese who are fighting against the communist regime. But the drug and food trade hides an arms trade. Discovered the traffic, the boy is killed. Then the brother sets out in search of the killers.
I think ChatGPT wrote that.
I think somebody for whom English was not their first language wrote this.
That's the same thing.
Fair. The title song in the opening sequence here has the title of the movie in it. And we're going to get into what the hell that means in a little bit.
Yes, it's a terrible song regardless.
Yes, but it is very end of the 80s.
And very much. You got to have the song's title in the movie on the soundtrack.
We open to our protagonist, Brian Kelly, and his crew skateboarding at an airport. They find a student pilot and bully him into taking them aerial to find an empty swimming pool. In the plane, they cover the interior with skateboard branding stickers, because if this movie is good at nothing else, it's good at product placement. One of the crew, Buddy, is a driver for Pizza Hut and points out the store he works at from the air, and eventually they spot what they're looking for. How do they get down? Good question, Joe.
Actually, you thought of that question without me because I didn't even consider, where was their landing strip? What I want to know is, Brian seems to have no particular other interest in his skateboarding. He doesn't, as near as we can tell, have a job. His parents don't seem to really be paying him stuff, so how did he have the money to play off this pilot? Because the other guys are not giving him money, only he is. Brian's the only one giving the pilot money.
I think his mom probably slips him some.
His mom may just cash him a few bucks. Here's your
allowance.
The paying off of pilot money.
Yeah. Because every kid needs some paying off the pilot money.
Okay.
Brian Kelly is played by Christian Slater.
For the podcast, we've seen him in Heathers, And we've both seen him in Interview with the Vampire Chronicles. That's the whole title, folks. Broken Arrow and Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
And I've seen him in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, Zoolander, and the animated 10 Commandments from 2007. Buddy is played by Tony Hawk, legendary skateboarder.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen him in Thrashin' and Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol.
I know very little about Tony Hawk other than one. He's in these commercials for some vitamin thing for your knees, because obviously it makes sense. I bet he really does have busted up knees as a professional skateboarder. And also that apparently he shares our politics, because he was on one of these liberal podcast things. He was like a guest on there, and his wife had turned him onto the show, and so he came as an audience, and they brought him up, and he was talking about it.
So he's good peeps?
So he's good peeps, yes.
Alrighty. It's nice to find that out, you know? The boys take turns skating in the empty pool. They shout encouragement to one another.
Gleam the Cube, buddy.
In case you didn't hear that, that's, hey, Gleam the Cube, buddy. Alright, according to Wikipedia, the title of the film refers to the cryptic question, have you ever gleamed inside a cube? That Gary Scott Davis asked Neil Blender in an interview in the December 1983 issue of Thrasher magazine. This isn't the last time the title will be mentioned in the film. As far as I know, the phrase Gleaming the Cube never took off in skateboard culture. That doesn't mean this movie didn't try to make it happen like Gretchen did with Fetch in Mean Girls.
First of all, I don't even understand that sentence you just read. not from you. I mean, from what the guy's saying.
Cryptic isn't the good descriptor for that. Nonsensical is a good descriptor for that.
Yes, I 100% agree. I'm like, what is it? I mean, I guess it shows where my mind is, or just maybe because I'm just overall horny. Gleaming the Cube sounds like a oral sex thing.
Okay, we're just going to move on from that. Yabo, arguably Brian's best friend in the group, wipes out and suffers what cannot be his first head injury. Wear your helmet, kids. Yabo is played by Max Perlich,
whom I just saw in Amsterdam. Not the country, the movie.
We've both seen him in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I've seen him in Cliffhanger and Maverick. That's the Western with Mel Gibson, not the redone Top Gun.
Or the TV show Maverick with James Garner.
Nope.
There are a lot of Mavericks.
Yep.
None of them as racist as Mel Gibson, though.
Nope. The police and medics arrive, and I don't know who called them. The homeowner complains a bunch.
You know how much a refinishing job like this costs? $2,200.
Hey, what do you want me to do?
I gotta have the whole pool refinished. I have to have it refinished again. Have an acid wash, drain, the whole thing. Yeah, just because these kids come in here. Look, don't smear the blood around, okay? Take your shoes off or you're gonna be in there. I don't want scuff marks in that pool.
What a fucking prick. Like, I get being upset, but Jesus, this guy is an asshole. Then the homeowner asks if he can sue the boys' fathers. Very specifically, Can I sue their fathers?
Yeah.
Not can I sue their families, can I sue their fathers?
So women don't work in this era.
Yep. Detective Al Lucero responds to the boys' snark with physical abuse. 'Cause bastard. He takes only Brian into custody for some reason.
Al Lucero is played by Stephen Bauer, and I seen him in Scarface 1983. But here's what I want to bring about this character. When you first see him, did he not seem like that was Christian Slater's brother? Because that's the first thing that popped in my head. I thought this was his older brother, and that's why he took him.
Very much could have been. It's a very older brother abuse kind of dynamic.
The whole thing is like this is his older brother. Throughout the movie, it seems like this comes across more of a brother relationship than anything he does with the other guy. Yeah, and he just takes Brian. All the more reason they say, oh, he must be like his brother, and he's taking him back home. That's why he's not arresting him.
Yeah.
And by the way, don't we establish Al Lucero as some sort of homicide detective?
Well, no, we don't establish that yet.
But we will, won't we?
We will later. Yeah, it's really weird why he's showing up to this thing, but also shows up to it. Well, it's not a homicide at first, but we'll get there.
Yeah, it's very odd that he should be there.
I'll just call it a plot hole and move on. Brian's parents pick him up and bring him home. Mr. Kelly is less than happy. Mrs. Kelly plays Peacemaker. Adopted brother Vin Kelly is hard at work on a very, very old portable word processor, yet looks up to stick up for Brian. Mr. Kelly is played by Ed Lauer.
For this podcast, we saw him in Real Genius, and I seen him in The Artist, True Romance, which was another Christian Slater movie, Bad Company, the 1972 version, Seabiscuit, and both George and I saw him in The Rocketeer.
And I've seen him in Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise, Not Another Teen Movie, and The Number 23.
Not to get distracted, but in this, because I never saw the second Nerds movie, did they mention not have a rape in that one?
I don't remember. I just remember that I saw it. Because I saw all of them.
Okay.
Because kid.
You're a completist.
Yes, or my cousin was. Mrs. Kelly is played by somebody whose name I could have sworn is just spelled wrong, but nope, that's it. Nicole Mercurio.
Who I saw in 2 Days in the Valley. That's the second time that movie's come up. That's interesting. I haven't thought about movie in years. I guess I'm in the era where people who are working also appeared in that movie.
Yep. Vin Kelly is played by Art Chittabala. And for the show, we've seen him in An Indecent Proposal and Crash, and I've seen him in War of the Worlds. The brothers share a bedroom, and there is friction around Brian's sloppiness. They chat about family dynamics. There's a chessboard between their beds that they take turns making moves on. They have a mostly good relationship, but Brian is jealous of Vin's success in school.
I found that whole conversation
Scripted as fuck?
Yeah, I didn't. Again, this is why I had to give the impression these are like brothers in any way. That I didn't see him as part of the family, even though he's adopted and everything, because the way they talk to each other, first of all, they're still bringing up the adoption, which really shouldn't be something you'd still be talking about after all these years. He's been there for a while.
11 years. It's been 11 years.
It would not even be mentioned.
Vin's girlfriend, Tina Track, shows up at the window rather than the front door for some reason, and Vin leaves with her.
Through the same window.
Through the window. On a school night. What a rebel. Tina Track is played by Min Luong, and we saw her in Big Trouble in Little China.
That was really weird that they go through the window, because we know, at least as far as we know, the parents don't object to her dating him.
Nope.
So why the secrecy?
Good question, Joe.
And it's not even addressed in the film. It didn't explain, okay, we got to sneak out because blah, blah, blah. No, this is a normal thing.
And we know that she knows how doors work. She uses them later.
Yes, she does. So does he.
The next day, at school, Vin delivers Brian his homework that he left at home and that Vin made corrections on for him. Yabo thinks that Yabo is funny.
By the way, Brian, I always forget which one of you guys is adopted.
And to be fair to the movie, Brian's like, yeah, you're fucking hilarious, you asshole.
And again, the adoption thing. It's like the script or the producers or the director or somebody didn't think they had enough confidence to believe in it. And so everyone has to constantly bring up that this guy's adopted over and over and over again.
And the movie itself can't even take it seriously, as we'll find out later.
Yes.
Vin shows up for work at Bolsa Video, a VHS rental store. So no, this movie doesn't work anymore. Actually, no, I can't say that because a movie can be about a time period. Or about a thing that happened during a time period, so it's fine. It doesn't say present day anywhere. Outside, he has a tense conversation with coworker Bobby Nguyen in the parking lot. Tina works at the front counter. Her father, the owner, Colonel Track, is on the phone talking about vegetable shipments to Vietnam. Bobby Nguyen is played by Peter Kwong, and we saw him in Big Trouble in Little China.
Colonel Track is played by Lee Tuan.
In a back room, the movie becomes Weekend at Bernie's for a moment. Vin reviews a shipping manifest for the Vietnamese Anti-Communist Relief Fund, or VACRF, that the Colonel runs. He notices something odd about the weights of what are ostensibly medical supplies. He brings it up to the Colonel, positing that Westpac Medical Supplies is ripping them off. Bobby is very interested in overhearing this conversation. The Colonel dismisses the findings as a clerical error, and then gaslights Vin. So Vin packs up to leave and takes that shipping manifest with him.
Well, he outright fires him even.
Doesn't fire him.
Didn't he fire? I got the impression he was fired.
No, he said, I'm going to give this particular task to somebody else.
Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. My problem with that whole scene, besides the Weekend and Bernie-ness of it, is that, okay, I'm doing this illegal operation. Why bring this child in? I gotta keep these things secret. Why not bring in someone who's already in on what's happening?
This child that you know is super fucking smart and not the kind who's going to miss something like what didn't get missed.
Exactly.
Mom comes home and gifts Brian with new skating PPE, pads and a helmet. She is super, super supportive.
Well, I shouldn't tell you this, but I love to watch you skating.
You do?
You know how clumsy I am. I can't believe a son of mine is so graceful.
Like, right on, Mom. That's really sweet.
But they never actually see him skateboard. I don't remember her or the dad ever watching him do it.
Nope, they don't. It's a lie.
And he never goes into any sort of competition, so where is she watching him do it?
Nope, that's thrashing. I think, if I remember correctly. Vin picks up a smoking habit to cope with his boss gaslighting him, and Brian catches him smoking in their bedroom. Vin tells Brian that he's in trouble. Brian is dismissive, then waxes philosophical and fatalistic, before asking Vin what happened at work. Vin answers vaguely and then gets an idea of his own.
Because it's a movie.
Yeah, because it's a movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you're about to investigate something, let other people know what you're up to, just in case something
Just in
happens.
case.
Or better yet, don't investigate. Call the cops if you think there's a problem. Something. It's so funny because and this is also a huge plot. And makes it such an 80s movie, and maybe they still do it today. Although I don't see it nearly as much. There's always one character who's like, I've got to investigate this. Tells no one what's going on, and this leaves all these minor clues you got to figure out all on you by yourself. It's ridiculous. At least this is a high school student. I've seen movies where a cop does this. What kind of law enforcement is? I'm not going to tell anybody what I'm up to. I'm not going to get any sort of backup. I'm just going to investigate this all by myself and not even tell my partner or anybody.
That kind of tracks, though. That with reality. Incompetence?
Incompetence, maybe. I think even a dumbest cop would know, I should probably make sure someone can follow up on this case.
Maybe.
That's why they have partners.
So Vin goes to Westpac Medical Supply HQ and sneaks into the warehouse. He trips an alarm while snooping around, taking pictures of boxes in the VACRF aisle. He starts prying a crate open when the lights switch on, and then he's held at gunpoint by Ed Lawndale, CEO of Westpac Medical Supply.
Ed Lawndale is played by Richard Hurd, who I saw in Get Out.
Lawndale takes Vin to a motel room, where Bobby uses strangulation torture to get him to talk, which seems counterproductive given what we know about the efficacy of torture for intelligence gathering. Vin didn't actually find anything, but this is already a crime, so it's not going to end well. Colonel Track shows up and Lawndale steps outside to talk to him. The colonel says Vin is a good egg. Let me talk to him. Then they go back into the room.
I don't know what happened. I've done this before. I've never killed anyone. It's been done to me. I'm still alive.
Past performance is no guarantee of future outcomes. Also, you're strangling somebody. What the fuck did you think was going to happen, you goddamn idiot?
Or at least could happen.
Yeah.
Well, he's definitely an idiot, but the biggest idiot is the freaking boss man who finds this kid in the warehouse instead of calling the cops and just throwing him out. He's like, I'm going to pull a gun on you. Where's the security guards anyway? I don't even know where they do have them. We'll see them later, so I don't know what the hell is going on there.
Well, they're obviously not very good.
He's with Mr. Colonel Track or whatever the hell his name is. They work together, so he knows who this kid is. It's insane.
In the morning, a maid is horrified to discover Vin's body hanging in the bathroom. Lucero shows up to investigate. He interviews the motel owner.
Rented a room to this Chinese kid, and next thing I know,
This kid's Vietnamese.
well, they all look alike, you know.
No, they don't.
All right, Lucero's a little bit less of a bastard. He's still a bastard, but he's real quick to stomp on that shit.
Yes. Well, he's not a racist. He's just has an unusual relationship with this young man who's not his brother, although I swear it was. Also, what happens next?
Well, Lucero is tapped to call the family.
Yeah, like he knows them personally. The guy's like, oh.
Well, he does.
Yeah, but I just don't. Again, it just reads to me like, why couldn't the script just make it that's his brother? It just would make so much more sense to me. Everything it does. And also, well, we already asked why was he at the other crime scene. So now apparently he investigates all the crimes that involves his brother.
There's only one detective in Los Angeles County.
I can't even think
Or San Francisco, or wherever the fuck they are.
No, Orange County.
Orange County. Yeah, I don't know. There's an Orange County in New Jersey, too. It's fucking weird.
There's oranges everywhere, George.
Mr. Kelly shows up at the school. Brian meets him out front and gets the terrible news about his brother. Brian is, as one would imagine, upset. So he goes to a local halfpipe and skates his angst out, much the way frickin' Kevin Bacon did in Footloose.
Exactly.
And it won't be the last time he does that.
There is so many other movies in this movie. I don't know if it came out in 1989, so some of these movies were before that, but still, it just comes off as cliche.
But it's cliche with skateboards.
As opposed to dancing, yes.
Brian shows up late to Vin's funeral, wearing grunge black skater formal something, and leaves a chess piece on the casket in a way that unnecessarily disrupts the service and makes that chess set unusable.
He is unnecessarily disruptive. I love screenwriters. They think, oh, isn't this nice? It's so sweet. They'll show the audience how much he cares. And it just comes off like, no.
He was late to his brother's fucking funeral.
Yeah.
He was late to the funeral. That's disrespectful.
And he put this thing on his chest. They're going to keep that on top of the casket. What is the point of this? At least put it in the fucking casket if you're going to bring it.
Yeah. So Brian goes through his dead brother's things, because I guess he doesn't need them anymore, and stares at a picture of Vin and Tita for a bit before discovering and pocketing the shipping manifest.
Because he immediately knows Something's up with this manifest for some reason. He's a regular Sherlock Holmes.
Yep. Oh, it's a piece of paper with a bunch of Vietnamese writing on it. It must be important.
Just amazing.
Brian takes the manifest, written in Vietnamese, and asks people in the Vietnamese part of town if they can read it.
I genuinely laughed out loud when I saw him doing this. I'm like, he just random people in the street. Hey, I don't live around here or anything. Here's some paperwork. Could you just read this? Can you be just my translator person I don't know? Where I know one Vietnamese person for sure. She was dating my brother. Her I don't ask.
Yeah, but if she was born in the U.S., she might not know how to read Vietnamese.
I don't think she was, but it doesn't matter. We can at least see a scene where you ask her.
Yeah. No, we can't have them talking to each other yet. What's gotten into you, Joe? There has to be a specific moment for that. He finally finds someone in a pool hall who translated as, maybe drugs, shrug. Bobby happens to be there and wonders where Brian got that list. So Bobby leaves the pool hall to follow Brian, who notices that he's being followed. He skates back to the motel where Vin was killed to talk to the maid who found him. She thinks that he's joking inappropriately when he says that Vin was his brother. Even the movie can't take itself seriously. Like, it has a character built in who's like, it's not your fucking brother. You fucking asshole, white kid, Vietnamese dead brother. Get the fuck out of here.
As weirdly as he doesn't just answer, he's adopted, okay?
Yeah, like it's a really easy thing that, he was adopted. That's all you have to fucking, I understand that concept that's really popular, that everybody understands. Brian sees Bobby still following him and loses him so that he can become the follower. He does some skitching, which is a dangerous stunt where a person on a skateboard holds onto a motor vehicle for a while. Brian follows until Bobby stops at a payphone. Then Brian sneaks into Bobby's car and hides in the back seat, where he notices a gun and a knife under the driver's seat.
Okay. Now, maybe you can explain this, because I don't own a car, so I'm not a regular driver, but I've been in cars. It is really hard to hide in the back seat.
He's not in the back, he's on the floor in the back.
Dude!
It's easier to hide back there.
I don't know how he misses him, but okay, you think he could have successfully hidden.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to trigger anybody. I don't want to freak people out. I know that people are worried about things. There is a non-zero probability. People have been attacked in their own cars by somebody who snuck into their car and laid in wait for them in the back seat, just like that. It happens.
Uncovered or anything? I don't know.
Because you don't look in the back seat. If you're not expecting something to be back there, you don't look back there. Unless you expect something to be back there, then you look back there. If you watch this movie, you should expect something to be back there. Especially if you killed somebody's brother recently.
Yes. Maybe a little on the alert.
Bobby drives them to a wooded area to meet up with Lawndale and Colonel Track. He tries to extort them for cash and a ticket out of the country. This doesn't go well, and Lawndale shoots him dead.
You've done your share. Killing. It wasn't in defense of my country. This is different. How is it different? This is murder.
How is it different? Are you fucking serious? You're a grown-ass man and the CEO of a company, and you can't tell the difference between killing somebody during wartime and killing somebody in a field in the middle of nowhere?
He's very trigger-happy, this guy. He's too quick to stop shooting people or pulling guns on people. He's like, ay.
Well, he sees that he's shipping all these guns to someone else and he wants some of the action.
I guess.
Lawndale and Track argue for a bit more, and then Lawndale leaves. Track puts Bobby in Bobby's car trunk, and then he leaves. Finally, Brian gets out and leaves on foot. That night, because Brian left on foot and it took him for fucking ever, Brian returns with the cops. The area is devoid of evidence, Colonel Track having had enough time to clean up the scene. Lucero and the cops think Brian is pulling their legs. However, Lucero doesn't know why Brian would make that up, so he goes back to the Atomic Lodge Motel and asks to see the check-in log, rather than relying on the dumbass owner's memory of faces that he can't differentiate. Brian makes his way to Yabo's, whose bedroom is an underground fallout shelter in his parents' backyard. Which I have always wanted one of those.
It's kind of cool. It really is.
Since I saw this movie as a child, I wanted a room I wanted a workshop or something in a shelter under the backyard. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, he's had a sweet setup. There's no denying it.
Yabo is super validating and supportive as a friend between the faux deep skateboarding philosophy talk. They talk about Gleaming the Cube again here. In a phone book, Brian finds Bobby's address and leaves. The next day, Brian goes to Bobby's and finds Lucero already there. After some arguing, Lucero tells him that Vin didn't check into the Atomic Lodge Motel that night and that he got it covered, so Brian needs to go home. Brian swipes a page from Lucero's notebook with phone numbers and then leaves.
And again, the whole conversation felt like older brother. I hate to keep returning to this, but it just felt like every scene those two were together, it felt like this is the guy talking to his older brother.
Okay, so going forward, you could just say older brother dynamic, and we'll get it. Brian tries that list of phone numbers at a payphone until it rings at Bolsa Video, where Vin worked and where Colonel Track owns. So Brian visits Lucero at work to return his list of phone numbers, saying that Bobby calling Bolsa Video implicates Colonel Track, so they just have to find the third man, call back to episode 200, the American. Lucero is dismissive. Brian shows him the shipping manifest. Lucero calls over a detective to translate it as a list of medical supplies and says it means nothing.
Also, it doesn't prove the man had anything to do with the death of his brother.
Nope, sure doesn't, Joe.
It just means his brother, who worked at that company, has a shipping list.
Although, what we could say is this. It's what you can expect from a dumbass high school student trying to do an investigation.
Probably too many head injuries as well from that skateboarding.
Yep.
But he's got this wonderful cop-brother dynamic going on, so getting lots of help.
Mm-hmm. Brian again skates out his frustrations, this time at a construction site.
Wait until he discovers masturbation. Then he'll really be happy.
I mean, he can do that now. He's got his room to himself.
That's true. Oh my God, what did they do?
Oh, you did that in the bathroom. Brian visits his brother's grave and has a one-sided heart-to-heart. In his bedroom, Brian sees a picture of Colonel Track and Tina, and since she's the only named character lady in his age group in the film, he decides to ask her out. Okay, also because she's a vector to her father for intel gathering.
Quick question. Would you date... I know why he's doing what he's doing, although that will change. But would you ever date someone who dated your brother?
If she was that cute, yeah.
I know it doesn't mean anything. It's just your brother's girlfriend. But still, the idea of it just gross to me. I wouldn't want to date any of my brothers touched.
So he asks Tina out in school the next day. She turns him down. Her dad won't let her date white boys. And also, she gestures broadly at him being a screw-up.
Well, no. She didn't say white boys. What did she say?
Americans.
Yeah. All the more makes me feel like, well, what does she consider herself?
Yeah, right?
To say nothing of the guy she was going out with, the inciting incident child.
So I'm really proud of the scene title I came up with for the next one. Mantage.
Okay.
Brian goes home, tears all the posters off his wall, gives himself a haircut, and nearly gives his mother a heart attack by dressing like a preppy kid. At school the next day, his friends make fun of his new style, and everyone at school is shocked, including Tina. She is so impressed with his makeover that she is willing to stand up to her father over it and have him take her to a movie. Brian is outside the front door listening as she argues that Colonel Track is a hypocrite for allowing Americans into his store but not his home.
Well, come on. Of course he has Americans in his store.
Like, right position, bad argument.
Like, what choice has he got? He's in America. Can you imagine? Okay, the store has no Americans come in here.
Oh, I was also proud of this scene title. Little Miscegenation.
That one made me laugh.
Brian all but tells the Colonel that he's onto him as Tina rushes him out the door.
I get that he's changing his personality or whatever because he wants to get closer to the family, blah, blah, blah. That explains the clothes. That doesn't explain why he had to take down his posters and stuff.
Yeah. Well, what the fuck was he expecting? I mean, she does end up sleeping in his room, but he couldn't have seen that coming unless he read ahead in the script.
Yes, exactly.
After the movie, he asks her a million questions about her father, and she thinks it's weird because it's weird. She turns the conversation to his skateboarding, and he says it's how he expresses himself, except he doesn't do that anymore. So what the fuck?
He no longer expresses himself.
Yeah. Congratulations, Tina. You're now dating an automaton.
By the way, you could take skateboarding out of this movie and you'd still have the same movie. It plays such a small factor in this film. It's ridiculous. They call it Gleaming The Cube, and we're a skateboarding movie. No, you're not. It's so little to do with skateboarding. It's hilarious.
Brian arrives at home to find his father watching home movies, in which Brian is a spoilsport. He and his father have a nice reconciliation moment, each blaming themselves for their crappy relationship. Which, I will say, it was kind of a sweet moment.
I 100%, that was the only real moment in this film for me. That seemed like a genuine moment. That seemed like a genuine family coping with something. None of this other bullshit read true to me at all.
So this movie should have been about a young man coming to grips with his brother's death and the drama in his family surrounding that. That seems like that could have been a movie.
That is the movie. It's just not important.
Didn't have to be a fucking Weekend at Bernie's spy thriller. By the way, we keep saying Weekend at Bernie's because the inciting incident in that was the protagonist finding a discrepancy in the accounting.
Right.
And that's what set everything off. So the shipping manifest thing is the link there. Brian goes for a bike ride on the boardwalk where he runs into his friends who make fun of him again. They try to talk some sense into him, and he's like, nah. On the beach, Westpac Metal Supply and Bolsa Video are sponsoring a fundraiser for the VACRF, including a martial arts demonstration. Brian finds Tina serving guests, and he learns from her what Westpac Medical Supply is and who Lawndale is. So Brian, like his brother before, infiltrates WMS, but manages to avoid tripping the sensor. He busts open a crate with his skateboard and finds guns inside before safely escaping.
This company is very bad at camouflage. 2 high school kids break into your factory and they both find the guns that you're hiding. That's bad work, guys. You gotta be better at criming if you're gonna crime.
Lawndale and the Colonel have dinner at a restaurant where Lawndale has problems keeping his volume down.
That's what people say about me when I drink too much.
Yes, we do say that. We did say that last night. He explains just how many guns and ammo are in that warehouse. 3 times, and the waiter comes back every time he's about to say how much ammunition is there. It's kind of funny.
It's funny, and also there's a couple sitting right next to them who can, if this
Clearly
is real,
hear what they're talking
every
about.
word they say. Yes.
He explains that someone broke into there last night, and Colonel Track is not happy that his people are going to have to wait longer for their weapons. Meanwhile, Brian and Tina are hanging out at her parents' house alone. Woo! He asks to use the bathroom. On the way, he spots the Colonel's study. Inside, he nicks a hat and a monogrammed Zippo. Tina comes in to kick him out the back door because her parents just got home.
My parents just pulled into the driveway. You better go out the back door.
Didn't they know I was coming over? Why'd you risk that?
Just hurry.
Good question, Brian.
Yeah, there is no reason for it to risk that. It makes no sense.
I think for a second there, the character's like, yeah, I don't have a reason for that. Just go. Just go. I don't have an answer to that question. Just go. This was a bad decision.
If you invited someone over and they say, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and you find them in a room they're not supposed to be in, looking at things they're not supposed to be looking at.
Quickly shoving shit into their pocket.
Yeah. That alone would end the date, I would think. I think my parents coming home.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? She's not concerned about it at all. She didn't think it's fun. She didn't think, oh, are you stealing something? Nothing.
Yep. Brian can't sleep, so he goes to Westpac Medical Supply and blows up a propane tank, leaving Track's hat to sow discord between the Colonel and Lawndale. Because he's a master fucking spy.
He is a master fucking spy, you're right. I mean, I laughed at that propane tank thing, because that literally is what happens. It's not a joke on your part. He really goes there and blows up a propane tank.
He siphons gas out of his parents' car and uses his skateboard to deliver this Molotov cocktail to the propane tank. No word on what happens to the skateboard, which should be in splinters, some of which would be recognizable as part of a skateboard.
Yes.
But we're just going to gloss over that and pay attention to the fact that he threw a hat on the fucking ground. From atop a nearby building, Brian watches the police and fire department at the scene, with Lawndale yelling at his security guards. He watches Lawndale find Track's hat and leaves when Lawndale gets into his car. On his car phone, Lawndale calls and vaguely threatens Track, who sends his wife and Tina to stay with his brother.
So, this kid breaks into this place, then he returns again, blows it up, blows up a section of it. Oh, and do you remember he's hiding from the security guards before he blows the thing up, and they don't know where he is?
Yeah.
We can see him under this visible space, and somehow the guards do not.
Yep.
He's so visible, and some of the guards just can't see him.
Like, I just started playing Baldur's Gate 3 on my computer. It's a game based on Dungeons and Dragons. Mm-hmm. My level 1 rogue can hide better than Christian Slater.
This is so badly done. It's makes my head spin. Like, professionals put this together. And then, okay, they blows up the place. He somehow manages to get to a building, I don't know how far, 40 feet away, whatever. Gets up and breaks into that building, gets on its roof, be able to watch these guys. How's this kid into skateboarding? He should be a spy or something.
Yeah, kid's fucking Spider-Man. So Lucero shows up at Brian's house to talk to him, insinuating that Brian started the fire. Brian all but admits to it, which he'll then deny later, which makes no fucking sense. And Lucero says that he's done, no more Mr. Nice Bastard.
Which is completely untrue, because his personality does not change at all towards this boy.
And even later that night, Tina shows up at Brian's bedroom window to express concern about the whole go live with your uncle thing, and to tell him she really likes him.
For some reason.
She goes to sleep in Vin's bed, and in the morning she spots her father's lighter on Brian's nightstand, and he tells her everything. Which is the correct ethical thing to do there. Like, you're caught in like, he tried to lie about it, and she's like, bullshit. And he's like, okay, here's all the things that happened.
Yes.
That is very unlike Weekend at Bernie's.
Well, for God's sake, they need to wrap the movie up.
Yeah.
Drag it out.
So Tina comes home to confront her father, who says that Vin's death was an accident. He asks her to leave so he can take care of something. He calls Lawndale, tells him about Brian, and then says he's out.
Let's see. I know this man is a murderer. I know he's involved in the murder of the young child. In this other murder in the forest. What I'll do is I'll tell him I'm out, so he'll definitely not want to murder me. And I'll tell him about this other boy who's on to him, because he'll definitely not want to murder him. Easy peasy.
The only justification I can see for him to do that was, I really don't want her dating an American boy, and this is a way to take the American boy out of the picture.
I guess so.
But that would make him way more of an asshole than he's supposed to.
He's just an idiot.
Yeah. Lawndale sends 3 motorcycle-riding thugs after Brian, who manages to skateboard his way to safety, taking 2/3 of the riders out with environmental obstacles.
The magic skateboard.
Lucero interrogates Brian, who says what just happened. He says this is what happened, because that happened.
Yes.
Then Lucero interrogates 2 of the riders who speak Vietnamese to each other and deny everything. So Lucero brings in the guy who understands Vietnamese, who confirms that they work for Lawndale.
2 other idiots. Why would they discuss that there? And I guess I can understand, because generally speaking, in so much I know anything about law enforcement, they usually like it to have, when they're interviewing people, to have them separate to see if their stories match, rather than have them together where they can just chit-chat to each other in Vietnamese or any other language. But I guess maybe in this case it makes more sense.
Well, because it was scripted to make sense, Joe. Because you know how those foreign criminals will speak their foreign language to each other, thinking that white Americans are just stupid and won't understand. Because that's the joke here.
Yes.
And it is a joke. It's not a funny joke, but it is a joke. Brian shows up at Yabo's bunker to have his friend, who he has been a dick to for like half the movie, build him a new Uber board. Yabo's in. Lucero shows up at Brian's to tell him his findings, and Brian's just not there. When Brian's board is ready, he heads out, wearing all his new gear, instructing Yabo to assemble the crew. There is a mini montage of that happening as Brian skates to the track's place. From the track's backyard, he observes Lawndale and the Colonel arguing. When Lucero pulls up outside, Tina comes into the study to tell her father, and Lawndale takes her hostage. Boy, that escalates quickly.
Yes, very quickly.
The police are here. Now is the time for me to take a hostage. Not for us to just shut the fuck up for a second and act like everything's cool.
Yes.
No, now I'm going to commit more crime.
Not only is he a CEO, he's a white man CEO in Orange County in 1989. All he would have to say is like, talk to my lawyer. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep.
This whole gun business seems a bit, if I may use the phrase, an overkill.
Yeah. So Brian invokes his brother's name, then goes flying through the study window.
Another moment where I just burst out laughing.
This one's for you, Vin. What? When did Vin ever ask you to do that?
Vin has never asked you to do shit. And he still didn't ask you to go flying through a window, you dumb bastard. What the fuck? At the very least, if the idea was to cause a distraction, throw the skateboard or something through the window.
Like, throw the skateboard and then run in after it so that there's a punch behind the distraction.
At least something.
But he blew his cooldown on that. It's fucking ridiculous.
It just blows right through the glass. I was like, what an idiot.
Lawndale shoots the Colonel right before Lucero enters the room. Outside, Lawndale takes their delivery guy hostage also, and commandeers him to drive them to the airport in Lucero's police cruiser. So Brian helps Lucero hotwire Lawndale's car, and the chase is on. And I kind of like, okay, on one hand, it's kind of stupid when Lucero gets in the car and like reaches to see if the key is still in the ignition. Like, anybody leaves their fucking keys in the ignition except his dumbass. But then Brian comes in with his skate key, and what that's called is a skate key, and it's got all the little adaptations you need to tighten all the things on your skateboard up. Mm-hmm. But it's got 2 things on it that you could use to sort of force the ignition switch. He says, this is against the law, and then does the thing. And then Lucero's not like, okay, now I'm about to engage in a high-speed chase. I need you, young civilian, to get the fuck out of the car.
Exactly.
He's like, buckle up, we're going on a ride. You're right, Big Brother dynamic.
Yeah.
So it's a skateboard-centric chase sequence. At some point, Brian's friends, with Buddy in the Pizza Hut delivery truck, force Lawndale to take a different route. Stunts are performed, skitching happens, and eventually the police cruiser is cut off. Lawndale gets out, still with Tina as a hostage, and Brian comes flying at him on his skateboard, knocking him out, suffering some minor injuries himself.
He got more injuries there than when he went through a fucking plate glass window.
Well, some of those injuries were from the plate glass window, because it's the same.
You think so? Because he seemed fine when he got in the car. He never says, oh, I don't see any cuts or anything on him. He seems perfectly fit.
Well, later, Tina visits Brian in the hospital, where he's recovering as an inpatient from a facial laceration and a broken arm.
They don't admit you to the hospital for those?
No, Joe, they don't.
That's so very stupid.
She tells him that her dad didn't make it. Sad moment. Then he says he'll walk her to school, as she's worried about what all the people are going to think. They don't kiss, but he strokes her hair a little. So there's that. The end. Yes,
it's pretty clear they're going to end up as a couple. All right. I'm not even going to keep you in suspense, folks. It doesn't work. This is a terrible movie. And it's not even bad enough to be hilarious, though I'm laughing at lots of it. I thought this sucked. It's so dumb. And it's a dated piece. The country's moved on from everything in there, from the video store to, I mean, you're right. It's set in that particular era, but in that era, it's a dumb thing. As you point out, no one says Gleaming the Cube.
Yeah.
So even the thing they're trying to make happen doesn't even happen.
Stop trying to make Gleaming the Cube happen, Gretchen.
Whatever. Anyway, what did you think, buddy?
Yeah, no, same thing. I loved this movie as a kid, but that's because it had fucking skateboards in it.
And you were a kid.
I was a kid with a skateboard, so I identify with that. See, representation matters. But no, it's a ridiculous plot. Like, just over-the-top ridiculous in ways that are just too easy to poke holes in.
And you agree with me, right? The skateboarding thing is an afterthought, right? They could have been doing anything with this plot. It didn't have to be skateboards.
Yeah, it could have been any sport. Like, they could have been doing the high-speed chase sequence wearing football pads, just running after it on the highway.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. Like, I enjoyed the movie as a kid, and I kind of enjoyed revisiting it, but that's only because I knew everything that was going to happen. So, no, it doesn't work. It's silly, it's stupid. Bless it. Let it rest in peace.
But did you see now what I was talking about, where there were parts in there that seemed like the writers or the story didn't seem to think that these Vietnamese characters were American either?
Yeah.
Because it
was written by a white dude.
Evidently. I should have said this earlier, but another quick aside, folks. If you need something translated, don't go to random strangers in whatever town.
That ethnic part of your town, yeah.
Ethnic part of your town and go like, hey, translate this for me. So goddamn stupid.
I mean, at this point, you could probably take a picture with your phone and Google will do it for you. So it might even be a moot point now.
That's true. You don't even have to bother anybody. You can do it yourself. True. You're right. All right. So anyway, enough of this. This was a Patron's Choice episode, and the poll for next month's film is already up on Patreon. The choices are Hard Boil from 1992, 28 Days Later from 2002, and Midnight Cowboy from 1969.
What's the theme here, Joe?
Good question, George.
Okay. It's not required that you have a theme, but you often do. And when they're this hard to discern, I assume you either don't have one or it's going to be super interesting or super niche. But you just don't have one. Cool. Okay.
I truly do not. If you want to vote but are not a patron, you can fix that by becoming one at patreon.com/DTSWpod. Now, George, what's up next?
Next week, we will be talking about Short Circuit from 1986. We already recorded that episode.
Yes. So we've already talked about it, so you'll get to see us talk about it, that we already know what we talked about.
You want to try that again?
You'll be going back in time. No, we will be. Who's going back? They're going back in time, because we already did it. So we're in the future where they're going to the past.
Surely you have a dizzying intellect.
All right, so I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romacka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's nobody around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros. Doesn't matter.
You know, if I had a dog with a face like yours, I'd shave his ass and teach him to walk backwards.
What'd you say?
Okay, for realsies, I took that insult from this movie as a child, and I used it a lot.
This does not surprise me.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romacka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
That wasn't a... Was that a drum roll? That wasn't a joke.
No, that was
Salinas,
me dropping my phone.
I know. It just sounded like a drum roll. George, if you could be the Willy Wonka of meats, which meat would you choose?
Do you mean making a living just with our show, or do you have ideas for other shows that you want to make? What's the most selfish thing you'd spend unlimited money on?
George, you win the Mega Millions lottery. Who is the first person you tell?
All right, Joe. You meet a beautiful black woman and hit it off great. Only thing that's not perfect is that she is non-monogamous and not interested in a monogamous relationship. Does sexual exclusivity weigh heavier than all other relational aspects combined for you?
Final question. George, do you remember your favorite children's book as a child?